Welcome to Which is Best, presented by Code 3 Games. Today we are going to talk about the Genasi, all of them. Which is best, the ones from the Legacy version or the new ones from Mordenkainen's Monsters of the Multiverse? DM Aaron here with Sam and Manny. Today we're going to talk about the Genasi and their different elemental types. Sam, take it away.
Gladly. So I decided to do all the Genasi at once just because the differences and the add-ons that Monsters of the Multiverse adds to it are very similar, and it's just easier to tackle all these together since in the Legacy they were all kind of introduced as just kind of Genasi was the core stat block, and then the sub races of it, air, earth, fire, and water, were just extra little add-ons for versatility of the character. So starting with some general traits, they kind of did a whole entire upheaval of these. General traits to me being the ASI, creature type, size, and the languages. The ASI and languages are changed just kind of like how they've been doing with all races recently in the recent books and MOM, where it's the lineage system, as I like to put it, where it's a +2 or +1 to any stats you like, or a +1 to 3 stats you like. Much more versatile versus the solid +2 to con that all Genasi get, and then a +1 to dex, +1 to strength, a +1 to intelligence, or a +1 to wisdom, depending on which Genasi you decide to spec into, going in order with air, earth, fire, and water to those +1s specifically. Kind of like give it like makes sense that like the hardier and the sturdier earth would get the strength bonus, where someone is like light and like kind of like light as a feather, like air would get a +1 to its dex. But basically, those all changed with the lineage system in Monsters of the Multiverse. Same with languages, where now you get common and a language of choice rather than common and primordial, which makes sense for elemental beings and creatures that descend from the elemental Jinn, but it still gives a little bit of more versatility for players who are coming in and want to like really make their Genasi their own. The creature type is still the same. They're still considered humanoids, and one really big change that we see a lot in MOM is the size. You can now choose between medium or small for the Genasi rather than just having it be a medium-sized creature. Small-sized creatures, of course, are always really fun. They can go into smaller spaces, and they also have access to certain racial features and racial feats that were introduced in Xanathar's Guide to Everything that are only applicable to smaller races. And some of these can be really intricate and interesting. So really fun to think about when creating your character, and I'm happy those feats can be applied to a wider berth of player races now. With
So
this
I'm going to
difference
interrupt
of
with a
medium and
question
small.
on that.
Yeah, what's up?
Did you, in your research on when you were doing this one, did they give a reason why Genasi could be small now? Because I'd never heard that before
No,
this.
yeah, that's the thing. They don't really do that. I think it's more just a character creation choice rather than like any type of lore, because not every character has the option to be small. Like you wouldn't see a
Right.
Goliath given a small feature, you know? But I think it just once again adds like kind of like with the lineage system with languages and ASI, it just gives you an extra boost to really customize your character. And you know, as the Goblin has, Fury of the Small. You know, small races are pretty great.
Okay.
So it just gives it like a little bit more versatility depending on like what you want to create. But it doesn't really delve into that.
And so you found all of the various types of Genasi can choose medium or small?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, with Monsters of the Multiverse, they all kind of had like the same size requirements, and then their features are what changed like respectively with like what type of element they kind of embodied.
Okay.
Specifically. But yeah, but there was just kind of like the giant upheaval with the kind of general stats. So now going into the more intricate, I'm going to be starting with one that got the most love, I think, out of all four of the aspects, the Air Genasi. Starting with its speed has now been up to 35 feet, once again kind of embodying that very dexterous, fast, fleet-moving character type that the Air Genasi has. It was also given a lightning resistance, so you have resistance to lightning damage as an Air Genasi, and that's just already a big win because any type of damage resistance given for just a regular player regular racial feature is always really helpful. You don't know when you'll run into it, but when you do, it's just going to be very useful for the occasion. And then lastly, there's something that's just been added across all aspects of the Genasi in general, is they've been given much, and then they've been given a small improvement to their innate spell casting. With this one, it's their ability is called Mingle with the Wind. But before in the Legacy, they had access to one spell. I think it's one of first or second level. In the Monsters of the Multiverse version, they now have the more common innate spell casting we see, where they have access to one cantrip. At level 1, they get level 1 or 2, they get access to their first spell, and then at level 5, they get access to another spell of third level, I believe. So it just adds to that kind of like innate magic and spell casting that they have, and then you can use that spell once per long rest without expending a spell slot, and then subsequent times if you have more spell slots to spare. But it still gives it like a special like little extra something something. So I think for the air, it definitely goes in favor of the revised newer version versus the legacy, where they just gave it much more to really deal with. Following this, we go to Earth, which has same speed and has the same Earth Walk ability. It didn't really change too much, except it really beefed up its spellcasting, innate spellcasting, like I just mentioned. In this case, the Earth Genasi has the least amount of spells it can cast. It's like the least magical of all 4 of the elements. But what's really cool with this is it gets a cantrip and the same spell passed without a trace. So it's not too much of a difference, but the cantrip, which is Blade Ward in this case, can be used as a bonus action a number of times equal to proficiency bonus rather than its regular action to cast that cantrip. And this just makes the cantrip now 10 million times better, because for those who don't know, Blade Ward gives you resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage, but it's an action to use. So you're kind of using your whole turn to kind of bolster yourself against any incoming attack. So getting this ability for limited uses as a bonus action just gives you like a really nice resistance and buff, and kind of points to that hardy feel that the Earth Genasi should have. And I think making that a bonus action was a really big deal to kind of balance out how magically inferior it would be compared to the other ones, and more like melee centric. Moving on from that as well, we go to the fire now, which is very much the same in most of its aspects. Speed is the same. It still has the same fire resistance and same dark vision, which I've always really liked, because instead of looking in shades of gray, you look in shades of red, and I just think of Daredevil. So I think that's really cool for like a personal note. And once again, its innate spell casting, Reach the Blaze, has been upgraded to 1 cantrip and 2 spells versus a cantrip and a spell. So that's something you're going to see similarly. And then last but certainly not least, the water elemental has also had the same change as well, with its Call to the Wave innate spellcasting ability, where it now has access to 2 spells and 1 cantrip versus only a cantrip, which is once again just heightening that innate spellcasting. Everything else still stays the same when it comes to its speed, both a swim and a walk speed, acid resistance, and its amphibious nature, being able to breathe both air and water. So for a final verdict for me, they definitely did a major overhaul for the general aspects of the Genasi. I think the aspect that saw the most love was the air. It just gives it a lot. It just improved what was already there and added stuff upon that, which is really cool. And I think as on Earth Genasi, they just made it, giving it the bonus action to do Blade War was just really, really cool. Because one, you kind of then have as that turn a regular barbarian's resistance during a rage, which I always think is really, really cool. And so that can really help for it if you're really trying to build like a frontline fighter. So overall, I think adding better innate spell casting and some like little cool tricks like that, plus an giant overhaul to its general traits, will definitely give the verdict to Monsters of the Multiverse in this case. Just really did a giant overhaul for the Genasi to really make them their own for each of their aspects.
Cool. Manny, reactions.
So essentially what I got from this is that they gave them better magic abilities and more specialized abilities, so that one isn't better than the other. But definitely Monsters of the Multiverse seems the way to go with this one.
I think it definitely balances out. Like you might have less spellcasting with the Earth Elemental, but as I said, you get that bonus action use for resistance to all like mundane physical damage, which I
Yeah.
think is really cool.
And then for me, I want to go back here to the air Genasi, how they have the walking speed of 35 feet. So you can choose to be small and get the 35-foot walking
Right?
speed.
Yeah.
That's a nice combo that
Yeah.
I don't know if you can get elsewhere. At
Honestly,
least
I
without
don't
another
remember
feat.
it. Yeah.
Right.
And a lot of because there is a small race specialized feat from Xanathar's called Squat Nimbleness, which gives you that 5-foot speed bonus.
But it takes
which
up a
is
feat.
Yeah, but that's what a lot of people get because as a small race, especially in like Player's Handbook, you see it with the gnome and gnome, dwarf, halfling, they all have a base speed of 25 rather than 30.
Right.
That's something we'll also see as well with like races that were traditionally small, like with the kobold, for example, and the goblin, they always had an innate speed, flat speed rate of 30.
Yeah.
Which they started adding later on. So like, yeah, you're right. So having someone small and having that innate 35 is just really cool.
Yeah, and then give them the mobile feat, and then you can bump it up even more.
Yeah.
Make him a monk, man.
Exactly, make it even better. Make him a monk. Someone's like definitely like put it down with like boots of speed.
Oh yeah.
Potion of speed.
You'd be like a
35.
dragon and have a move of 80 every turn. Just
yeah,
base.
someone did it where like you get like 2,000 feet around, and I was like, what? So if you really want to make a speedster, like you can do it now with like a small character and be like the Tasmanian Devil or something. I think that'd be pretty fun, just speeding around the battlefield like a certain rogue ranger in our party.
Yeah. So what I like on this is that they fleshed out what was just a little subclass of the Genasi and then turned it into actual fleshed out. And so I'd actually like to see them do this with the elves, because the elves are the same way. You've got your elf race, and then you've got all these different subclasses that are kind of the same way. So I hope when 5.5 comes out, they break down the different elf types, because I'd like to see a cool sea elf or something fleshed out this way.
Well, actually, that's funny because they have sea elf in Monsters of the Multiverse as well.
Well, there you go. Well, then maybe
as well as the Eladrin and the Shatterkai. But we'll get to those. I think someone's covering those, so we'll get to them.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, let's do our final votes here. So, Monsters of the Multiverse and Legacy version. So vote on 3, 2, 1. Other way.
I don't know if I'm reversed or not.
You're reversed. Go back. There you go. Monsters of the Multiverse. There we go.
We've solved this before camera last time, but we forgot. Monsters
All right.
of the Multiverse all the way.
Monsters of the Multiverse on the Genasi. So, thanks for watching to the end. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.